Good evening, friends. It is Thursday, August 15th, 2013, and this is Flashpoint Radio. I am your host, as always, Jay-Z. Thank you for joining me on tonight's edition of Flashpoint Radio. We take a look at, well, the past and the present, namely regarding our government and corporations. And we will ask ourselves one question: have things gotten better or worse? Are these organizations more corrupt or less corrupt? But before that, I wanted to look at two flashpoints that have been on my radar for quite some time, as I'm sure most people are watching them, and that is the Middle East and the, well, domestic and global economy. I think these are two things that could spark fires that would spread far and wide. From, the Middle East could come all the way to the United States, and a domestic economic collapse would definitely spread to the rest of the world, causing a chain reaction that, well, we really don't know what would happen these days. We know it would probably be worse than the Great Depression and definitely than 2008. But we will start with the economy from the WallStreetJournal.com. Blue chips shed 225 points. Stocks fell the most in a day in 8 weeks as bond prices tumbled after stronger than expected economic data raised investor anxiety about a pullback next month. Corporate earnings were not very good, but the false unemployment rate was good, and of course the false GDP has been fairly lied about and made to look wonderful. But the Dow Jones down over 225 points today, namely on the fact that the economy is so good that the Feds are going to taper their quantitative easing next month. Now, I can tell you that won't happen because of, this next story. The Fed will not allow what the Fed tapering will be a direct cause of. From MarketWatch.com, Fed tapering, the math investors need to know. Now, this is kind of a confusing article to anyone who doesn't know much about the stock market. It confuses me, and I know a little bit, but we'll focus on this one paragraph here. To put this in very simple logic, now it's talking about the Fed tapering and interest rates, namely the 10-year interest rate, 10-year treasuries. The Federal Reserve has been suppressing interest rates to boost the economy. Duh. That suppression artificially hiked the value of the stock market by a simple mathematical equation. Now that suppression is coming to an end, which, I doubt that. Interest rates can be expected to rise. That's going to happen completely. That rise ought, again by a simple mathematical equation, to reduce the value of the stock market dramatically. Now, this article goes on to state that through this math, it could see a valuation slash of 30 to 50% of the stock market. Now, Fed tapering causes a 50% reduction in the value of the stock market. Do you think that would cause chaos throughout this country? Do you think public pensions, private pensions would take a little bit of a hit? Do you think it might put the gas pedal on while we're on the road to Detroit or other cities are? Yeah, public pensions are heavily invested in the stock market. If it were to lose a large portion like that, it would put multiple municipalities in even a bigger hole and less way of digging themselves out, which would in turn lead the Fed to continue quantitative easing. Of course, they could be prepping the economy just to pump more. They need a reason to pump more, don't they? So let's bring about a little bit of what's really going to come, an actual collapse, and then pump some more to put it on down the road. And one other signpost towards that from MarketWatch as well: gold rallies on heavy demand, silver up 5%. So gold was up over 2% and silver up over 5% today, and they've both been on a upward trajectory over the last week. That is a market to watch. I think everyone, if you're not in the silver or gold market in some way, need to at least diversify or look into it. I think it would do you a lot of good to at least look into the possibility of buying some gold or silver. And moving on to the next flashpoint, namely Egypt, the Middle East. From the AP, death toll from Egypt violence rises to 638. Things are getting out of hand in Egypt. The army that has basically been part of a military coup in that country have now been using live rounds to disperse protesters. A very dangerous step to take for that country. It looks like civil war is about to be set in pretty heavily. Things have gotten dangerous on both sides. From the UK Mail Online, horrifying moment Egyptian protesters pushed an armored police van 50 feet off a bridge. Yeah, there were officers inside. This is what happens in a country that has lost its sovereignty and lost its ability to govern itself. These type of things happen. We have short video of that armored vehicle. Let's take a look at that. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. Could be what the globalists have planned for us. But it's hard to tell who's in the right in Egypt. You know, there's bad people on both sides. It's really hard to take a side. That's why kind of a non-interventionist policy may be the best policy. But our president had something to say today. Obama on Egypt. We don't take sides. Yes, he says we don't take sides. No, we don't take sides. We just arm sides. Yes, namely both sides, like Al-Qaeda in Syria and Syria in the past through proxies, and Egypt. We've armed both sides in the Egyptian conflict. We've been on the side of both supporters, the supporters for the Muslim Brotherhood and those supporters that want a more secular government. We've been the one fomenting this in that country, and it's something to watch. So yeah, those are two flashpoints that you should keep your eyes on, because the Middle East conflict could spread very, very quickly, and it's got global superpowers that are on kind of opposite ends of their thoughts about that situation. And domestically and globally, the economy is still on thin ice, and anything could shake it over and into that frozen lake. So prepare yourselves, as always. Get yourselves ready just in case. Now, let's take a look at, a little bit of our past and present segment this evening. First, we're going to look at the issue of government spying, and we're going to start in the past. Now, this is a declassified document I got from cryptome.org. Check it out. A lot of fun stuff over there. And this is from 1955. Now, one thing to note is this wasn't declassified until 2011. So maybe there's a reason you never heard of this, but it involves ultrasonic listening devices. And it states, devices exist which, by sending an electrical impulse through a telephone, will permit remote surveillance of any office in which a telephone is located by utilizing the telephone microphone as a pickup. Such eavesdropping may be accomplished without additional wires and is possible even though the handset is in a hung-up position. Physical access to the instrument itself is not required to put the technique into operation. So yes, without actually having access to the physical telephone, in 1955, they could turn your phone on and turn it into a listening device wherein they could record what you were saying. You think they've got that today? From the UK Mail Online, NSA can listen to US phone calls without a warrant, according to congressmen. Yep, we all know what's going on with the Edward Snowden and the leaks, and yes, they've just been releasing known documents, known programs that, yes, they have been listening and can listen to our phone calls and turn your cell phone into basically a microphone, even when it's turned off. Yeah, do some research of your own. Have things gotten better or worse? Now let's look at human testing. Well, first off, just go to Wikipedia and look up the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and do a little research. But that is when they took people from the Tuskegee Institute, a black college, now Tuskegee University, and, they did some research on them concerning syphilis. They took people with syphilis and people without syphilis and tested them. Found that they could just watch them and see how the disease progressed within them. They gave them no treatments. They didn't even let them know they had syphilis. And in a lot of cases, those people died. They were all blacks, and they were supported by, groups of blacks that helped the government to do this to those people. They were unwitting stooges, I'm sure, in this government experiment. But, this all started in 1932 and went on for 40 years. 40 years they let people live with syphilis without telling them, when they had the treatments and the cures for these type of things. Didn't let them know. No, because we're just cattle. Let's jump forward to today. This is from 2012, November of last year. EPA charged with lethal experiments on hundreds of unsuspecting subjects. Turns out that they weren't giving subjects the full knowledge of what they were getting themselves into, and they were pumping them full of diesel fumes, basically diesel exhaust. I'm sure the EPA was doing this in order to restrict diesel engines and the economy that is created through the trucking industry, but they used human subjects unwittingly and pumped them full of diesel exhaust. Have things gotten better or worse? Now, finally, we have a video and then a final story for this evening, but let's look into the past and see what a corporation did with doctors and how they use doctors. Short clip.
Coffee, doctor?
Oh, fine. Have a Camel with your coffee.
Thanks.
You know, this night work's kind of rough, isn't it?
That's right.
But a Camel's always a pleasure.
Yes, folks, the pleasing mildness of a Camel is just as enjoyable to a doctor as it is to you or me. And according to this nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Try Camels yourself, the cigarette so many doctors enjoy.
More doctors smoke Camel cigarettes. Yes, more doctors smoke Camel cigarettes. You know, you can find a doctor to say just about anything if you pay them the right amount of money or if you don't teach them the truth. And that leads us to our final story from Infowars.com. Coke to defend safety of aspartame in new Chicago ad. Coca-Cola plans to run its first ad defending the safety of artificial sweeteners on Wednesday. A move that comes as the company looks to stem declining sales of diet soda. Yes, Coca-Cola says that aspartame is perfectly safe, and they have found doctors to prove it through studies that they funded or other groups funded. Look into that, aspartame. Look into the side effects. If you drink Diet Coke, maybe you should try stopping, or at least look into what you're drinking. The history of aspartame is a colorful one. So, there you go. Corporations telling the truth, then and now. Have things gotten better or worse? Come on, people. The corruption has been growing. Apathy is what led to this. The American people not giving a hoot and not doing anything about it and saying, well, there's nothing we can do, or it's already too bad, or it's not that bad, but it's just lying to ourselves. We have to stop lying to ourselves. All we have to do is open our eyes, admit the evil's there, and it loses all its power. Our government, all of these corporations, they have their power because we consent to them using our energy. If you just stop buying those products, they will go out of business. If you stop watching that television, it will, cease to be productive or lucrative for those companies. If you stop complying with ridiculous government orders, they will become obsolete. They're trying to make the individual obsolete. We have to make them obsolete. Say no. Turn your back on this system. Spread this information. Spread someone's information. Always stand for the truth. And if you don't, get out of the way, man. There's people that want to do some good. Jay-Z signing off for Flashpoint Radio saying God bless and keep your eyes to the sky.